How can organizations, neobanks like Greenlight or Moniz, who onboard refugees who may have little to no identification, onboard their clients?
That's an extremely important question to answer as we deal with and want to provide access to the online economy for people that are new to country, or even just individuals in developing countries that might not have the same access to a passport or a birth certificate or other documentation that we typically take for granted. This is a very important challenge for the identity industry overall. And in our view, the best way to really approach that challenge is to expand the types of information you can leverage to perform verification. We would not have used 3, 4, 5 years ago a mobile phone number as a main prominent identifying attribute for an individual. We may not have had the ability to accept a residency permit as opposed to a passport or a birth certificate. There are all these different new attributes that reflect the changing dynamics and demographics of people that are new to country or in international areas that we can now leverage in a single technology stack as part of your risk-based approach to prove the individual's identity. So we've taken that to heart. It's very important around financial inclusion goals for Trulioo, and we love working with organizations who have that similar requirement, and we're trying to meet that challenge head on. It's all about participation and accessibility, regardless of who you are or where you're from. So we have built our technology to be able to consume a variety of new products and services that leverage those lesser known, at least today, attributes that can help identify individuals, but within the same workflow and the same technology stack, so it's easily applicable and usable for our customers. And that's really how our approach, and it will continue to evolve as we learn more and as we make new information available to use that same purpose for individuals in those categories.
With children not having a driving license or a passport, what's the KYC process for them?
Yeah, so what we did was we recognized that, parents are not going to want to type in super sensitive information about their kids. And so what we did is structure the account where it's the parent's account. So they're the ones actually registering and signing up, and we're verifying their identity. And then they kind of add their kids onto their account. And so that's how we did it, was essentially having the parent be the focus, be our customer. And then the parent can add their kids as kind of sub-accounts almost, if you will, onto their main account. We already in our app support, whatever the device will support in terms of fingerprint or, facial recognition. And, but I think you're right, it's going to go even further, beyond authenticating with the app. You'll probably be using some form of digital payment when you check out at the store, and that'll probably also be bioauthenticated. And so I'm a big fan of it. I think it does simplify things because then you don't have to remember passwords and type them in. And from everything I know about it, it's incredibly secure. So I think we'll see over time that, it'll become even easier to verify someone's appearance to maybe, driver's license photos and things like that, so that there's even less that you have to type in. So I imagine, in a few years from now, we'll look back and go, remember when you had to type all that stuff into apps, and you just see this crazy, what people did that, that's crazy, just kind of how we look back, 10 years from now or 20 years from now and have similar thoughts.
How has ID verification changed for financial institutions over the last decade?
So when you take a look at the past decade for financial institutions and how ID verification has changed for that, you really need to think about 3 different elements. The first one is the regulatory environment. That has created a huge shift towards privacy controls, processing controls, and just providing a lot more transparency into that workflow from consumer all the way to subcontractor in terms of the different technologies you use to process and onboard consumers in a digital world. Another one is definitely around demographics. And so in the last 10 years for identity verification, we've seen a younger generation of individuals come online. We've seen different demographics changing within a country, like people that are new to the organization. And we've also seen definitely a more global environment where single institutions have had to look at their global rollout and global technology stacks to address the changing jurisdictions, but from a central console. So those two major shifts over the last 10 years have forced organizations to rethink how they manage onboarding, to rethink how they handle their identity verification stacks, and just to make sure that they continue to provide a quality service in light of those dramatic shifts.
I mean, we've got a strong know your customer, anti-money laundering policy and framework in place. And as part of that, we want to make sure that we understand enough about a customer to be able to verify they are who they say they are when they're coming through. So we work with Trulioo to be able to verify every single customer that comes through our platform. And the majority of those we are actually able to verify against independent sources. And where we can't, we end up going through a manual verification process where we seek additional documents from customers in case that we can't find an external source to do that. And so what we're doing there is we're just making sure that the person who is applying that they're is a legitimate person.
It does seem that your mission, so to speak, is to bring access to the US stock market and US stocks and shares to the masses. What's been the sort of the challenge around this particular mission?
Sure. So it's a bold aspiration, but really our view is that the US stock market is the largest market in the world. It represents about over 40% of the world's market cap. And that everyone should have the opportunity to invest in the US markets. So there should be no limitations on you being able to do it. Shouldn't matter where you live. Should not deprive you of being able to go and put your hard-earned money into the markets. So that's really what we stand for. And in terms of the how we're trying to make that possible, is if you look at where we are at the moment, is we started off in Australia. We started over 3 years ago in the Aussie market for Australians to access the US. And since the turn of the year, we're now in both New Zealand and the UK, as well as we're actually in Brazil as well, and we'll do a full launch later this month. So we're actually in 4 countries at the moment, but we don't want to stop there, and we've got as an aspiration for people in any market to be able to access the US. In terms of how we've done that, it's about working closely with regulators, as well as and working closely with customers. So you understand exactly what the local requirements are in different markets. So you'd say probably 80% of our product is similar, but the 20% that's localized is very important. So whether that's in terms of the onboarding fields and questions and how we verify customers, that obviously differs by jurisdiction to how people move their money in, whether it's local sterling or Aussie dollars in the case of Australia. How they move that money across and get that money into the US, that also differs. So there's small but impactful differences, but ultimately we're on this mission to open this up to the world.
As borders become arguably less important in today's digital environment, can you tell me about Trulioo's ability to operate seamlessly around the world?
Absolutely. It's one of our key aspects as a business that we've started with since the beginning. And what we've seen change is individuals who are moving from country to country, area to area, and organizations that are launching their products and services to a wide net of individuals. So it's very rare these days that organizations' long-term plan will be to just be in one single country. Even neobanks that have to launch in the UK or Canada only definitely have plans for expansion outside of those markets after a time period that they're planning and working through strategically. So when you think about that, you need to make sure that you can scale your process and take advantage of that global economy easily. And that's where we come in working with our partners. So when you build a compliance workflow, when you build an onboarding workflow that keeps your users safe and reduces fraud, you want to be able to pattern match that and scale it out through multiple countries as you go. And that's where we've had a ton of success, and why today with our products and services, we can cover over 195 different countries around the world with a single platform and a single API.
Well, that's all we've got time for on today's episode of the Fintech Show. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the future of onboarding and what it will be. As Zac said in the end, in a digital world, companies' aspirations are global, so you need to be able to scale your business and be able to accept the world. I think our guests today have shown how that is possible and how their innovative ideas are going to enable a seamless and safe onboarding experience for years to come. Thank you all for watching and see you next time.